I am Halivni, along with Peleg Levy. We're sitting here today with Yocheved, Herschlag, Muffs in Manhattan, November 30th, 2017. Thank you very much. What I'd like to do is to start from the beginning.
Okay.
And if you could tell me a little bit about your parents, if you're their history.
Okay. My mother was born in Rochelle. My father was born in Dembitz in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Poland, Austria there. He came here in, I think, 1912 or something, and during World War I, he was an enemy alien. He had a register because of Austria. Yeah, right. His parents came a little later after the war. His mother's daughter, the granddaughter of a famous scholar, Tavua Shore. Okay. My father never mentioned it to me. He discounted all of those things. What else on the genealogy?
Were your parents, were they observant?
No, but they decided before they got married that they would have a kosher house. In other words, there was that Jewishness that was very intense. But Shabbos, my father worked Shabbos, made no excuse for it. The house was always cleaned for Shabbos on Friday, you know. So there was that aspect, but and she cooked for Shabbos, but you know they'd go out and eat whatever. So yeah.
And your mother was born in New Rochelle?
She was born in New Rochelle, and they were married in New Rochelle.
Where were her parents from?
One parent was Litvak, and I'm not sure where the other parent. I know that that's from my mother's side, right.
So when did they come to the United States?
My grandparents?
Yeah.
I never knew them.
You didn't know them?
My mother's mother died when she was quite young, and her father died when she was like 20 or 20.
But your mother must have been born in
New Rochelle.
In around 19...
She was born in like... She died when she was 42, I think. And I was 12, I think. Right.
So she was, but her family was here for a long time. They came earlier than a lot of other immigrants.
Yeah, they came, yeah. As I say, she was born here. My father came like 1912, and during World War I was enemy alien. He had came to New Rochelle and had a register in there, wherever you registered as an enemy alien.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when were you born?
August 5th, 1927. I just celebrated my 90th this summer in Israel.
And where were you born?
Jamaica, New York, Queens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's where you were living. Your parents were living at the time in Queens?
Jamaica.
In Queens.
Yeah. Right.
And your father, what kind of business did he have?
He was a baker, and together with one of his brothers and a cousin, had a wholesale retail bakery in Jamaica. So he baked and drove the truck at the same time. You know, the same thing.
And what kind of places did he sell to?
Restaurants and grocery stores, and there was in the front part of the bakery there was a store.
Retail store.
Right, right.
Interesting. My grandfather was a baker.
Oh,
in
okay.
Cleveland,
Breads and stuff?
yeah. Also did wholesale. Used to get the like the hot dog buns for
Okay.
for Cleveland Stadium and things
All
like
right, okay.
that back
Yeah.
in the day.
So I knew good bread.
Okay. Where'd you go to school?
In Jamaica, public school 50 on, I forget what street, about 5 blocks from the house. And to high school, I went to John Adams High School in Queens, someplace. And then I started college. What?
What place are you in the family?
The youngest.
Youngest.
I have my sister's the oldest. She's still alive, thank God. My brother in between died some years ago. We were all very close. And as I say, my mother died in 41, I think. My father died when he was about 53, 54. Yeah. She was Yankee. He was from Dembitz.
Yeah. All right, so you finished high school, and then
I started college at NYU, but I was already involved in Hashomer Hadati, that's B'nai Akiva, right? And
how'd you get involved in Hashomer Hadati? Your family.
what?
Your family wasn't.
Wasn't religious, but I went to Talmud Torah.
Oh, okay.
From the time I was 9 or 10, and my
Locally in Queens.
locally, yeah, and from the shul, and then there came a teacher, Mar Weiss, Moshe Weiss, the father of Avi Weiss.
Okay.
About him, my father says, and my father was a very mild man. He should have broken his leg before he ever came to Jamaica. He frumified me. Right. Of course, I mean, it's a story I love to tell. He was a Talmud Torah teacher, and comes Purim or Hanukkah. He brought in a few young people, older than me, but, to do horrors and singing and dancing we had never heard, and so all this. And I said, Mar Weiss, who are they? And he said, well, they belong to a group called Hashomer Hadati, Hashomer Hadati. And I said, can I join? He says, well, you have to be religious. So I said, what does that mean? Because I know in my house, my mother prepared for Shabbos. I mean, she cooked, but it was, the house was clean before Shabbos. It was one of the, outside they ate anything, but the house was kosher. I'm sure there were loads and loads like that. Very Jewish, but Frumkeit was a different place. He says, well, you, he said, it's a wild story. I says, you have to be, what do I do? He says, well, you don't brush your teeth on Shabbos. So the next Shabbos, I come and say, Mar Weiss, I didn't brush my teeth. My father says he should have broken his leg before he ever came to Jamaica because I became frum.
How old were you?
12.
So you started to go to Hashomer Hadati then.
So he was one of the madrichim in Hashomer Hadati, and he brought some of his people down. I came, and then I was the only one left, and I would travel on the BM. Wendy, I'm having surgery. I would get on the BMT. I don't know if the BMT still exists, whatever. The overhead thing, to Brownsville, where they had a ranch, and I would go there, stay over somebody's house for Shabbos, and I became frumified, right?
Do you remember some of the people that were
Well,
involved then?
there was, from that time, first of all, it was Moshe Weiss and his sister Ella and his niece Shoshana and the other, I see some faces, but I don't remember the names. But I was the only one from Jamaica who caught the bug.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And that was Ken Brownsville. Right. And I was there for a while, and then, I don't know, to Borough Park. I did a lot of subway traveling. And didn't travel anymore on Shabbos, and etc. That was the beginning.
All right. And then, so you stayed involved throughout high school? And,
Yes, very
college.
much. Well, I stayed very much involved in high school, but I always had to travel to places because I was a bodedet, all by my lonely, right? But so for a while I was in Ramot, Washington Heights, and I stayed with someone who became we became very close. It was a very frum family.
What's their names?
What?
Do you remember their names?
Rosenberg.
Okay.
Rivka, Suri, and Esther. And Mrs. Rosenberg, the father had died years ago, and their brother was Yassel. And Yassel went to the yeshiva that was on Midas, ethical values.
Yeah. Okay.
And then in Washington Heights, it's Ken Ramot's Washington Heights. I mean, what else would it be called, right? And but I always had to travel to places. I never had local. Right. And then I was, extremely involved. And when we had a hachshara, training.
Right.
First, it was in Livingston Manor in the mountain, and then I quit college after a year to go to Akshara.
In Livingston Manor?
In Livingston Manor. My father was very upset. He said, finish college, become a teacher, then go. But we were up in Livingston Manor, and then we moved to New Jersey, to the Hakshara farm there. And
do you remember any of the people that were involved?
That's when I started to do a lot of cooking. I was cooking in kibbutz and cooking, for a few hundred people, I'm trying to remember the names of people. I see some faces.
Did you know Arthur Jaffe or Yitz Jaffe?
Yitz Jaffe, yes. Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Oh, yes, you said you're from Cleveland.
Yeah.
And there was somebody else from Cleveland. Hershkowitz.
Herky.
Herky,
Yeah.
right.
See,
Oh, I love them both. Good people, really, Yitz died just a few years ago, I think.
He was killed in a robbery.
Oh,
A number of years ago.
Yeah.
He owned a store.
he taught, right? He was a...
No, his brother, Eliezer, passed away only a few months ago.
My sister. Okay.
Oh, so you knew Eliezer Jaffe?
Yes.
Okay.
Eliezer and Hershkowitz.
Hershkowitz.
Right. And I think there was one more guy, or one woman, I don't remember. She had blondish hair.
In 1927.
That's when I was born.
He
Right.
passed away a number of years ago, but he he was a very active in Hashomer Dati, but he didn't go to Hachshara. He went into the army. He was in World War II.
Yeah.
And then he went back to Cleveland.
Right. Okay.
But those were his contemporaries.
Right, and the Shomer Hadati was a major influence in my life.
And at that time, your plan was that you were gonna continue with Hachshara and go.
I was going to go. I left NYU after a year and a half. My father was very upset. He said, "Finish college, become a teacher, then go to Palestine." Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I had my own.
Did you ever talk about Zionism or Palestine or anything at home?
No, we always had at home the Pushka, the JNF Pushka. I mean, that's, of course. And we didn't talk about it, but, I mean, they would support it, but they weren't involved in it. Yeah.
What about when did you start hearing about what was going on in World War II and the Holocaust? Do you remember anything?
I'm trying to remember. Well, World War II, different relatives, including my brother, were in the Army, the Navy, etc. My cousin Yussel was in the Signal Corps, which in Europe, which meant you went before the troops, right? Solly was an airplane mechanic, and they had him in Hawaii, so it was part of when I was a kid, World War II. I remember what was the day? June something, an important. The invasion, I think. And my Tante Annie had 4 sons, so 3 of them were in service. She fasted that whole day, It was, World War II to us meant if there was from a candy bar, the silver paper on the streets, you picked it up, and because then you would give it for war. They did something with the silver paper in the war. That's my sister, who's older, she was out of high school, and she sat in a booth in one of the 5 and 10s. They don't have them anymore, and collected money for stamps for the for the USO or something. And as I say, Yussel was in the Signal Corps. Solly was in Hawaii fixing airplanes. Yeah.
Did you still have family in Europe?
No.
Everybody came.
It was all here, right. My father came in
much earlier, right?
Much early. He, right. As I say, he was an enemy alien during the war.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if you had family
cousins or something.
No.
There may have been, but I don't. They didn't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
when
the only thing I remember is that I think it was before the States was in the war, but the war had started, and my father came from the town of Dembitz in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and he had close friends who hadn't come to the States. They had gone to Berlin or something and were doing quite well, etc. And he got them affidavits. That's when I learned the word affidavit. And I remember he took me with him. We went on the subways from Jamaica to Central Park, and he was meeting Paisach and Nuchem. And it was just, it was such a moving experience for me to see these guys. They hadn't seen each other in years. My father arranged to get them out, and it was a wonderful thing.
Yeah, thank God they didn't. They
Right.
what they escaped from.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So
Wow.
it was Paisa Genoegen. Good Galiciana accents, right? Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now you are in Hachshara. It's 1946. Seven. What year is it now?
I was in Hachshara. I went to Hachshara in the end of 45, I guess, right? And was in Hachshara for a year and a half. And there was no way of getting to Eretz Yisrael. But then,
Also, everybody was back. People were back from the war now. People who had fought
yes, yeah,
were now back from the service.
from Europe,
Yeah.
from back there, but you weren't getting visas to Palestine,
Mhm.
right? But then all of a sudden, it turns out that the Hebrew University was having a conference, an international conference for Hebrew teachers at the university, and so many of my chaverim had been Hebrew teachers. I was not involved in that. But I almost forgot that story. So there had to be a way for me to get a visa to go. So my friend Miriam Zirin, her father was the shamus and whatever. And they were the only religious family in our shul. And I had to get a visa saying I was a Hebrew teacher. Well, I wasn't a Hebrew teacher. So I go to Miriam. We had graduated high school at the same time. And there was the newly established, the first one, the day school, the first day school, Hebrew day school in Queens, in my shul. Right? And Miriam was the secretary. So I said, Miriam, I need a letter from the school saying that they're sending me. She says, I don't know, I have to ask my mother. Her mother was a frum lady, not bescheitel, but with tichel, you know. And Miriam comes back to me and says, my mother said, to go to Eretz Yisrael, you can lie. Is that the greatest story? It's value systems. So I got a visa, and we went on our garin, went on the U.S. Marine Corps, unreconverted troop ship, and it was May, I think, of 47. We set sail for Palestine. And I remember when we reached Haifa, a whole gang of us, because the ship was going to Haifa and then to Alexandria, you know, a non-discriminating ship. When we got to Haifa, we approached, and a lot of people come to the stern bow, I don't know which is which, of the ship, and we started to sing Hatikva, right? And there was one chassid, Nukoratard at the time, who stands in the back and doesn't sing. But we came with 3-month visas. But somehow, you know, the people arranged for us to go through the.
I have a question.
Yes.
I need to clarify something because I'm realizing that I'm a little bit. There's the Marine Corps.
SS Marine Corps, right?
Was this?
An unreconverted troop ship.
But this ship made multiple voyages.
Yes.
It was a ship that would travel from the United States, and it would take people to the Middle East and stop in different places.
No. First of all, it was probably a troop ship during the war.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you why I'm asking.
Yeah.
You didn't have an incident in Beirut, did you?
What?
Did you have an incident in Beirut?
No, but one of the sailors invited me to go offshore,
That's not,
and my chevra said, "Not on your life." So I missed my chance then to go stop in Beirut.
because later on, there were people who sailed also on the Marine Corps,
Right.
but that was in '48,
Yes. Right.
And
Some
they-
of my chevra also. Yeah.
and they got stopped. They were not allowed to come in.
Oh.
They were stopped in Beirut and taken off the boat.
Oh my! I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
So I was confused because I've heard this story about the Marine Corps has come up, but I didn't.
Yeah,
it
this
makes
is the
sense
Marine
that
Corps
there have been multiple
in
voyages.
June,
Yeah.
May, June, July of 47.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I missed my chance then to go. But Yocheved and I went later on, my husband.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay, is he doing? Hello? Yeah? Hi, can I call you later?
Okay. The summer of 1947.
Right,
There's lots going on in Palestine.
right.
The
I have to show you a photo.
okay.
Just a minute.
אוקיי, what we say, what, תגיד לה
Who-
שאני קצת משהו.
What's this picture of?
This is me. And this is an Einer Natziv. And I guess we were preparing for activity.
Now, did you,
I was, my position during necessary times was a ratzah, a runner, messenger, messenger girl. So I ran in the trenches.
רצה. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
you okay? What the summer 1947?
We came to Palestine.
The Exodus.
Yeah, but it's the same time.
Same time.
Same time.
So were you there already when that was going on?
I think it was almost exactly the same time.
But you were legal. You came legally.
Yeah, legally, yeah. I mean, we
Well, yes.
overstayed
but,
our legality, but
Right,
yeah,
yes.
but we were legal, right.
Because you were coming as
As
short-term-
delegates to a conference at the Hebrew University for educators, which I wasn't.
right. And where'd you go then when you arrived? You went straight to.
We were a garin
Okay.
from Hashomer Hadati, and we went to Einer Natziv in the Bet Shan Valley.
Was it hot?
What?
Was it hot?
And we were there for a year or 2 years, something. Yeah.
Okay. And you were just absorbed into the
Yes,
kibbutz?
I became one of the chief cooks. Learned how to cook on premises. You know what a premise is? That's a stove, like this high, and you put pots on top. What we did, if we had a lot, we had 3 premises, and we put the big pot on top of that.
Wow.
It was very high tech.
It was the main, machine to cook everything, the primus. What you call the primus.
The primus,
Yeah,
yes.
it was
yeah,
just-
that's we
that
didn't
is
have anything but a
The
primus.
פתיליה, קראו לזה פתיליה.
Oh, and Batilia.
Batilia,
Right.
yeah.
Batilia is a it's to heat something over.
I
You know,
was
it's
very-
a
I was
much
like,
weaker flame,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
right? and the Primus was a strong flame, and the guys in the machine shop created a holder so you could put 3 Primuses underneath. If you're cooking for 100, 150 people, you need
something
more than
like
one
that,
Primus.
yeah? Yeah, now we have the quiz. Okay.
That's my cooking.
Yeah.
I
This is
cooked
the
on a
bigger one
Primus.
for the big kitchen, yeah?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Very high tech.
Do you remember how many of you came as the Garin? How many
The
people?
Garin, I think that the first shift, ours was the first shift, I think about 15 people, something like that. Shoma Hadati, I think some of them, a number of them had been YU guys. I was one of the few who was not a Hebrew teacher.
Did anybody go to the conference?
What?
Did anybody go to the conference in Hebrew?
I think we all went to, document
Right,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're living in Einan Tziv. What was it like there? How was that different from your life up till that point? It must have been.
Well, it's completely, I'm in a non-electricity, right? Hot ground,
Yeah.
right? People speak Hebrew. I had this much Hebrew at that time. And people are busy jigging
Trenches.
thank you. That's where I ran. Lots of times. Right. I remember my first experience as a ratzah. There was like a trench or whatever, where the whole gang, about 7, 8, right next to the border of the kibbutz, and I had the message from them to bring back how they brought the news from Ghent to A. Yesh Rush Bepardes. And I was a newcomer. This was, so I knew Yesh, I knew Pardes, I had never heard Rush Rush. But on the way back to the position, I figured out it meant rustling. There's a rustling in them there woods, right? So I brought the news from Ghent to A.
Were the other kibbutzim that were in that area also? There was
Einer Natziv, there was Sde Eliyahu, there was Tirat Tzvi, and Shluchot.
all were
All Kibbutz Dati.
all kibbutz
Then we had others,
Yeah.
obviously, as well, but it's a gush.
Were there Garinim that went to the other kibbutzim or
No, our Garin from the States, we all went together. At different times later or something, they, there's one, what's his name, who's in Tirat Tzvi, I think, to this day. I see his face, I don't know his name, but he was also from Hashomer Hadati.
Itchy Fuchs?
What?
Itchy Fuchs? No, is he younger?
Not him.
He's younger, maybe.
I saw him a while back, yeah, but it's
Kaddish
Goldberg, right. Kaddish Goldberg, right. So, but mostly our Garin was at Einer Natziv. And that's where it was.
Do you remember? Okay, so now it's 1947.
Right.
We're getting up to November 29th, Chavtet November.
A date that is always... Yom HaTzmaut is not in my mind. I think Yom HaTzmaut, because we were so involved in a war at that time, that it passed by. I think it came on a Friday afternoon, so who knew what day and when it was. But Chavtet, It's every year it's with me. Kaftet. Remember we're at Anatzi, we're in the Chadar Ochel at the I'm standing at the edge out, and some guy I didn't remember seeing before, very muscular, in an army uniform, etc. Whatever. Not an army, because there's no army yet, but. And we're listening to the vote. Argentina. I got to tell you, what happens in that Chadar Ochel and at the hallway there will never leave us. Will never leave us. The end of the voting, this guy is crying. He's crying. And it was, of course, the most frenzied horror you have ever seen in your life, right? Mad. It was. So Kaftet is always in my mind. And Independence Day is, you're in the middle of something. What do you know, one date from another? It was a Friday afternoon, I think, so you don't take off time. But Kaftet is there. Anyway.
Well, so now immediately after Kaftet November is when, basically, that's when the hostilities.
That's what?
The hostilities begin.
Yes, that was the beginning, right? And I learned, I was a messenger, but I learned how to shoot, to fall with a rifle. Now, it's very interesting. One of our chaverim had been in the Marines during World War II. And it's different how in the American services you fall with your rifle, and in Israel. In Israel, you fall on your arm and you save the rifle. In the American thing, you fall on the rifle and save your arm. Because there was another rifle along the way, but in Israel, you didn't know if there was another rifle coming along. So it was an interesting, but I learned how to do those things, to throw a grenade, and how to get from Ghent to A, to crawl in trenches. Yeah.
Was there, and while you were in Anatziv, were there times where they had to were there attacks? Were there?
Yes, around the border. If I never came in, it was around the border. So matzav achen, right? And there were times when you slept with all your clothes on, including your glasses. I used to wear glasses all the time, tied behind your head, and with your shoes on. You know, matzav achen. You know, you're ready for. Those were the days, my friend.
How long did you stay in Ein Hanatziv?
I was in Ein Hanatziv, and then the Garin, the kibbutz movement, whatever, sent me to Tel Aviv to a course for kibbutznikim. I was the only kibbutz dati in the group for cooking school. You're going to cook for a few hundred people, you know, you should learn a little bit about this stuff. And so I was there, and I remember one incident for a few days, and so I slept there. Obviously, you don't commute from Bet Shan to Tel Aviv. And I used to see for a few times soldiers in trucks or some kind of car in the evening moving. And then afterwards we learned that they had opened the back road to Jerusalem. Jerusalem was cut off at that time. You read about it, you know, I saw them moving. So it was the back road to to Jerusalem. So that was very exciting to find out that that's what the soldiers were doing there. There was this story that at that time. Two soldiers, whatever, are walking down the street in Tel Aviv, and one of them is walking like this, and his חבר says, מה קרה לך שאתה הולך? אז כל אחד אומר, יהיה טוב. That's what it was. יהיה טוב.
You finished the course, you went back to kibbutz?
We went back to the kibbutz, and I was the whole time I cooked for a few hundred people. When I came back to the States, and I was in my house with my parents, and I said, I don't know how to cook for 3 people, for 5 people. We only do it wholesale.
Were you on kibbutz still when the state was declared? Were you still on?
Yes. Where was I when that? First of all, when the state was declared, I don't know if any of us remember.
Right.
Because we were in the middle of all kinds of things, and it was a Friday afternoon, so we didn't stop activities to say, "Okay, kids, we're posing for a picture for Hakamat HaMadinah." Right? Kaftet you remember completely.
How long did you stay on kibbutz then?
Well, I stayed in Israel altogether for 2 years, we were in Nativ, and then they sent me to a 2-month cooking course, and then they sent me up to the Galil. There was a new kvutza from North Africa someplace, and I was sent there to be like a madricha for them. The girls didn't know Hebrew. They didn't know by that time I knew some Hebrew, and they didn't know how to cook. So I was teaching cooking, and that. Up near Tzfat, right, a 20-minute walk from Tzfat. I say 20-minute walk because I used to walk from the Kutzah, from the kibbutz, into Tzfat to get the bread, etc. And one time I'm walking in, and I go to the baker, and we started to talk, and he finds out that my father was a baker. He was so excited and so happy. He did all the work for me. It was his joy for him to find the baker's daughter, right? And then another time walking on the road, and there's a truck with chevra coming in from the Bet Shan up there because something was going to break out up at Tzfat there. So everybody's waving to one to another, Happy days are here again, whatever. Tzfat was very beautiful. Yeah, very tiny. Yeah, cool. And and then I was sent. There were a group coming from North Africa. Did I tell you this already?
Up in Tzfat.
Next to Tzfat, to start a Kutzah, right.
Now, was there a story with Kfar Darom?
No, this is not Kfar Darom.
Did you have a story? Did you have a
yes,
connection?
yeah.
Okay.
But this story, they were from Tangiers, from some place, Asham, and I had to teach them cooking. They didn't know. And then came some hatkafa, some outbreak there, and they were terrified. And my job was to go in the trenches from one to another to shwoy, right. The Kvadarome, then I went back to, they sent me from place to place to teach, to do whatever. The Kvadarome period came later, because I went back to Ein Netziv, and then we hit Mazagnu with Anshe Kvadarome, with the people who had been displaced, displaced. I mean, they were, luckily they got out with their lives, right? And we joined together.
This is after they had left Kvardarome. What you?
No. The Kvadarome, when I'm getting the names of the places mixed up at this moment. Ein Netziv is back here. Yavna was here.
Okay.
And the people from what was their name to begin with?
From Kvardarome.
From Kvardarome were placed right there, right outside.
In Yavna.
Yavna,
Okay.
right. And then it Mazagnu. Okay, we joined together with them. And so I was the chief cook again, and taught them how to cook and whatever. And then outside, right next to Yavna, they were starting to build Karen Yavna, right? And a few of us were sent to Karen Yavna as it was being built. So I was sent, obviously, to cook. Right? And to where today the men's bathrooms were the showers or something. I don't know, whatever. It wasn't the world of Astoria, right? And to take a shower, we had to walk over to Yavna. And I remember one time, it was in the middle of the winter, and I go to take a shower, and I come out, and it's raining, and it's muddy, and I fall into the mud. It was... So, did I go back and take another shower? Forget it. Anyway, those were days when Zetzerich speak. This is a little rationing going on, but no one was hungry in kibbutz. No one was hungry. We all ate, etc. And what else about? I remember, Karen Avenue was being built. That's where we slept. Some of us, right? Semi-built buildings, right? And that's when we joined up with the people from the original Kvadarome. And they had been evacuated, right? And I remember one of the girls, about a year younger than I was, Pua was her name. She was blonde, from Poland. And it seems that they were on a train, and the train got to Turkey, and then there had to be special arrangements to get the thing to Palestine. And then she said, and she met us at the train. It was Henrietta Zoll, met them with dolls. I mean,
Wow.
It's a great story, right? These kids who had come out of a war, they came out of a war. Anyway, so we shared a little nook together, right? then from the Hitchashvut of the kibbutz was this side of Yavne. We went, and I think I left shortly after that. Right. It was 2 years.
And you went back to the United States?
I went back to the United States. It was.
Did you
It
always,
didn't work.
did you plan on, or you weren't
No,
sure?
no. I had planned that. I went on Aliyah. I didn't
Right.
go for tourist visa.
Right.
I mean, the visa may have been a tourist visa, right? But
Why? What?
didn't work.
Didn't work.
Didn't work.
Okay.
I was very much alone. Yeah. And that was it.
So where'd you go?
I went back to New York, to Jamaica, to my parents. Right.
Did you go back to college?
And then I went back. I wouldn't ask my father for money for NYU. He didn't want me to go in the first place. He would have paid for me to go to NYU. But we lived in Jamaica, and I took the exam for Queens College, which was a 20-minute bus ride. And so after 4 years out of college, I passed the test. And then I decided that I have to work. I have to do something because I can't. My father, my sister took money out of her account to pay for me to come or go or whatever. So my cousin Erwin knew of Young Judea. I had never. Young Judea to me was one of those bourgeois groups. If you're a Hashama Hadati or a Hashama Tzair, anything other than Mea Achuz collective doesn't work. But I loosened up my ideology, and I started to become a madricha, a leader for Young Judea. Little did I know that was to be a career of mine. I was a leader, and then I was a madricha, a menahelet, and then I was a thing, and a guidance counselor, not a guidance, but a counselor to counselors, and the whole thing. I became a major figure in Young Judea. The only thing I heard about Young Judea before I went was that it's some bourgeois group. There's Hashama HaTzair and Hashama HaDati. That's it, kids.
When did you get married?
In 72. Not till I was 42 or 44, something like that. And a few of my kids from Young Judea are my closest friends today. Nancy Dubler, was two of my kids who are now in Israel, live in Israel.
What's their names?
Barry Hershkowitz and Steve Friedman. They live in Rehovot now. Barry was an architect, and I forget what Steve. Steve sold folk dances. And we were supposed to go back. We tried it a few times to Ein Netziv this summer. It was 70 years.
Wow.
Yeah. But either the days were too hot or too cold, whatever. So maybe next year, if I make it, okay. Because they want to go with me. And anyway, wherever we will, that's it.
Do you remember? I'm going to ask you some events or names, maybe
Right.
from the story of the Lamed Hay.
Very much so. one of the Chaverim, one of the Lamed Hay, was in Ashoma Hadati. He was at the Hebrew University. He didn't come on Aliyah for. Then he went to the Hebrew University. Fine, and we met him, etc. And then he was what? Moshe Perlmutter. Perlmutter?
Pearlstein.
What?
Perlman or Pearlstein. I don't remember which one it was.
It just went out of my head.
Did you know him from New York?
Yeah, from Ken Borough Park. Yeah, from Ken Borough Park he was. I was bodedet all the time in the Shamadot there, from one to the other. I never had my own kvutzah or something. Meant to travel alone. Okay. But Moshe Avigdor was one of the Lamed Hay, and I live in Katamon, and Katamon streets are Milchemet HaShechrur, and I walk down each street, and they're my streets. Rehov Lamed Hay. I mean, come on. So it's always there.
Do you remember anything about him? Do you remember anything about
Yeah,
Moshe?
yeah. When he got to Eretz Israel before our Garin did. We were on the Marine Corps, I told you, and we had visas for 3 months, 6 months, I don't know. And he met us at the port, and I remember him telling us, I think, not to say anything about that the guards at the port there that we're planning to stay, you know. And then he came back with us to Ein Natziv when we took the bus, and I remember his face very well, and he was one of the Lamed Hay. So these are very personal. It's a personal war.
While you were there, people like do you know Tzipi Borowski Parat?
I know the name.
Okay.
So how do I know the name?
She was there. She's probably maybe just a little bit older than you. She had come to Hebrew University on a scholarship in '47. Her father was a Hebrew teacher, JTS.
The name is very familiar to me, and I don't know. I was the youngest of the Garin.
Chertoff, Mordechai Chertoff.
Mordechai Chertoff name is familiar to me, and his wife.
I don't know her name.
Zippy? No.
I don't think
No,
so.
I don't remember. But I know the Chertoff and Borowski, right.
Betty Weissman Levine.
No.
Marlon Levine?
No.
Okay.
I was about a year and a half, 2 years younger than the rest of the Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I got there just before my 20th birthday.
אתה רוצה את השאלה
אוקיי.
על התמונה הגדולה של התפקיד של היהודים?
כן, כן, אבל לפני זה.
לא.
I just ask just a couple of questions to kind of
Right.
close up a
Okay.
little bit. Do you have any regrets or anything that you would have done differently, or ever think about how things?
One, I had the great zchut to take part in Hakamat HaMedina. I mean, you don't get much more of zchut than that. A regret was that it didn't work for me. מה אגיד לך? Okay? It didn't work.
how did being part of that, how did that impact on the rest of your life?
I think very much so. I come back and I'm not going to go back to NYU. I'm not going to ask my father for money again. So I take the test to go to one of the city colleges, and I go to Queens College, a 15-minute bus ride, 20-minute bus ride from Jamaica. And my cousin Erwin introduces me to young Judea, and I become a madricha, and then a madricha of madrichim, and then I was high up on the. I was for many years with young Judea, with all levels, and I didn't talk much about. I didn't talk that much about my time in Israel. I talked some, but to me, Israel was. It didn't work for me, but it was still a major. I mean, to have had the zchut to take part in Hakamat HaMedina is no small thing. No small thing, right? So I tripped along the way.
Do you think people are aware of the fact that America, do you think people today, young people today, either here or in Israel, are aware of the fact that Americans were part of this story of the founding of Israel?
I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. It's how much they know altogether about Hakamat HaMedina, right? So I don't know. I remember when I first started to come here to Anshe Chesed, and I was talking to one of the other women, young woman, and she said she remembered her father would be driving a truck with neshek to the port here to go there. And that was so moving for me. I mean, that other people were doing it, and that she knew it, and her father did it. You know, so that was. My family was just very happy that I came back in one piece,
Yeah.
right?
All right, this was wonderful. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Right?
It was very interesting. Also, especially some of the connections of people who from Cleveland or
Oh,
the
yes.
personal things. So
Is Heshi still alive?
I don't think
Nobody's alive.
I don't think so.
Yes, I mean, they were special people, those Cleveland people. They really were. Magi lecha.
Yeah.
And what do you do when you're not doing this?
This is what I do.